Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today I welcome all my students of second year MBBS and BDS to the lecture related to gastrointestinal tract. Now, today is the continuation of the previous lecture in which we have learned about the feedback control mechanism of the ileocecal sphincter. Now, as you all know that the degree of contraction and the intensity of peristalsis are controlled significantly by the reflexes from the cecum. So, this sphincter is actually controlling the traffic from small gut to large gut. When the cecum is distended, there is contraction of the ileocecal sphincter, and that is very much intensified, multiplied, and ileal peristalsis is inhibited, both of which greatly delays the emptying of additional chyme into cecum from the ileum. Any irritant in the cecum can delay the emptying. If there is delaying of the emptying, then the person can have the inflammation over there in the appendix, which is one of the vestigial ruminant and can cause intense spasm of ileocecal sphincter, leading to the partial paralysis of ileum, and that these effects together they block the emptying of ileum into the cecum. The reflexes from the cecum to ileocecal sphincter and ileum are mediated both by way of myenteric plexus in the gut wall. See the different factors which can stop the traffic from the small gut to large gut. And why it is so? Because it has to do the absorption of water and electrolytes from the chyme, making it a more solid form feces, storage of fecal matter, so that the absorption occurs in the proximal half and absorption in the distal half only the storage is occurring. The movements still they have characteristics similar to those of small gut and can be divided once again into mixing and propulsive movements. So, what are these mixing movements given the name of hostrations? Hostrations, in the same manner, the segmentation movements occur in the small gut, larger circular constrictions occur in large gut. At each of these constrictions, about 2.5 centimeter of the circular muscle contraction, sometimes constricting the lumen of the colon almost to occlusion. At the same time, the longitudinal muscle of the colon, which is aggregated into three longitudinal strips called the tinea coli, contracts. These combined contractions of the circular and longitudinal strips of the muscle cause the unstimulated portion of the large gut to bulge outward into bag-like sacs called hostrations. See? Each hostration usually reaches the peak intensity in about 30 seconds time, and later it is going to disappear during the next 60 seconds. They also at times they move slowly toward the anus during contraction, especially in the cecum and ascending colon, thereby providing a minor amount of forward propulsion of colonic contents. New haustral contractions occur in other areas nearby. The fecal matter in the large gut is slowly dug into and rolled over. All the fecal material is later gradually exposed to mucosal surface of the large gut, and fluid and dissolved substances are progressively absorbed until only 80 to 200 ml of feces they are expelled each day. Propulsive movements, they have been given the name of mass movements. Now, much of the propulsion in the cecum and ascending colon results from the slow but persistent haustral contractions requiring as many as 8 to 15 hours to move the chyme from the ileocecal valve through the colon, while the chyme itself becomes fecal in quality, which is a semi-solid instead of semi-fluid. From cecum to sigmoid mass movements for many minutes take over the propulsive role. These movements usually occur only 1 to 3 times each day in many people, especially for about 15 minutes during the first hour after eating breakfast. A mass movement is a modified type of peristalsis characterized by the following sequence of events. A constrictive ring occurs in response to a distended or irritated point in the colon, usually in the transverse colon. The 20 or more centimeter of colon distal to the constrictive ring lose their hostrations and instead contract as a unit, propelling the fecal matter in this segment down the colon. The contraction develops progressively more force for about 30 seconds and relaxation occurs during the next 2 to 3 minutes. A series of mass movements usually persists for 10 to 30 minutes. Then they cease but return perhaps a half day later. When they have forced a mass of feces into the rectum, the desire for defecation is felt. Initiation of mass movements by gastrocolic and duodenocolic reflexes. These reflexes are very important because they can be asked. Appearance of mass movements after meals is facilitated by gastrocolic and duodenocolic reflexes. These reflexes they result from distension of stomach and duodenum. The reflexes almost certainly are transmitted by way of autonomic nervous system. Irritation in the colon can also initiate intense mass movements. For instance, a person who has an ulcerated condition of the colon mucosa, ulcerative colitis, frequently has mass movements that persist almost all the day. Defecation. Most of the time, the rectum is empty of feces. This results partly from the fact that a weak functional sphincter exists about 20 centimeters from the anus, right between the sigmoid colon and rectum. There is also a sharp angulation over there, which is contributing the additional resistance to filling of the rectum. When a mass movement forces feces into rectum, the desire for defecation occurs immediately, including reflex contraction of the rectum and relaxation of anal sphincters. Continual dribble of fecal matter through the anus is prevented by tonic contraction of internal anal sphincter and external anal sphincter. Internal anal sphincter is a several centimeters long thickening of the circular smooth muscle lying immediately inside the anus, and an external anal sphincter is composed of three muscle which both surrounds the internal sphincter and extends distal to it. The external sphincter is controlled by nerve fibers in the pudendal nerve, which is part of the somatic nervous system and therefore is under voluntary conscious or at least subconscious control. Subconsciously, the external sphincter is usually kept continuously constricted unless conscious signals inhibit the constriction. Defecation reflexes. As the process of defecation is initiated by defecation reflexes. So, one of the reflexes is an intrinsic reflex, which is mediated by the local enteric nervous system in the rectal wall. This can be described as when the feces enters the rectum, there is distension of the rectal wall, and there is initiation of myenteric plexus to initiate the peristaltic waves in the descending colon, sigmoid, and rectum, enforcing the feces towards anus. As the peristaltic wave approaches the anus, the internal anal sphincter is relaxed by inhibitory signals from the myenteric plexus. If the external anal sphincter is also consciously voluntarily relaxed at the same time, defecation occurs. The intrinsic myenteric defecation reflex functioning by itself normally is relatively weak. To be effective in causing defecation, it usually must be fortified by another type of defecation reflex, a parasympathetic defecation reflex involving the sacral segments of the spinal cord. Now, when the nerve endings in the rectum are stimulated, signals are transmitted first into spinal cord and then reflexly back to the descending colon, sigmoid, rectum, and anus by way of parasympathetic nerve fibers and the pelvic nerves. These parasympathetic signals greatly intensify the peristaltic waves and relax the internal anal sphincter, thus converting the intrinsic myenteric defecation reflex from a weak effort into a powerful process of defecation that is sometimes effective in emptying the large bowel all the way from the splenic flexure of the colon to the anus. Um, Defecation signals entering the spinal cord initiate other effects like taking a deep breath, the closure of the glottis, contraction of the abdominal wall muscles, so that there is raise in the intra-abdominal pressure, forcing the fecal contents of the colon downward and at the same time causing the pelvic floor to relax downward and pull outward on the anal ring to evaginate the feces. See, this is actually showing the descending colon from conscious control, the afferent nerve, the parasympathetic nerve fibers, the skeletal nerve fibers, the role, how there is emptying from the rectal contents via external anal sphincter relaxation, internal anal sphincter relaxation. So this is actually how this whole process of defecation is taking place. So, this is all about today's lecture, and stay tuned and do a good reading from Guyton, and stay blessed, and Allah Hafiz.